Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you with us today because, wow, we are looking at a situation that is literally evolving by the minute. If you've been tuning into the news at all lately, you know there's just an absolute flood of live updates pouring in about the 2026 US-Iran war. So today, we're cutting straight through all that noise. We're going to map out exactly where this conflict stands right now, from the hard facts on the ground to the international maneuvering, all the way to the impacts hitting your wallet. Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to use a sort of thematic ripple effect to trace this conflict. We'll start with the frail ceasefire, move into the regional crossfire, look at the global chessboard, then hit the economic fallout, and finally, wrap up with the domestic divide.
So, starting off with part one, the frail ceasefire. This is really the epicenter of the diplomatic breakdown.
To understand just how incredibly fragile the current April 8th truce really is, we just have to look at the recent words from President Trump. Speaking right from the Oval Office, he formally rejected Iran's latest response to a U.S. peace proposal. And he didn't mince words. He explicitly called the ceasefire on life support, actually referring to Iran's response as a piece of garbage that he didn't even finish reading.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how this perfectly juxtaposes the demands from both sides. They are fundamentally opposed, which is exactly what's blocking a lasting peace deal. On one side, the U.S. wants Iran to completely remove its highly enriched uranium and guarantee no nuclear weapons for a long time. But flip over to the other side, and Iran is demanding a permanent end to the war, a lifting of the U.S. naval siege in the Strait of Hormuz, the total repeal of sanctions, and respect for their sovereignty. It's practically a geopolitical brick wall.
And as you'd expect, the rhetoric firing back from Tehran is equally uncompromising. After their proposal got rejected, Iran's parliament speaker came out and warned that their armed forces are ready to teach a lesson for any aggression. On top of that, Iran's deputy foreign minister accused the U.S. of using a literature of humiliation. Basically, they're insisting that you just can't build peace through coercive score settling.
Which brings us to a frankly terrifying potential escalation. 90%. That number represents the weapons-grade uranium enrichment purity level that Iran is threatening to pursue if they're attacked again. To put that into perspective, they currently have a stockpile sitting at 60%. Jumping up to 90%? Well, that is the exact threshold required to build an atomic bomb. So yeah, the stakes of this broken diplomacy are hitting an absolute global maximum. Moving on to our second ripple, the regional crossfire. This is where the conflict spills across borders.
You see, this ceasefire really only exists on paper. For the rest of the Middle East, localized flashpoints are actively burning. Take Lebanon, for example. Israeli strikes and Hezbollah rocket fire are still going back and forth despite an April 17th truce, leaving 380 people killed since that specific ceasefire was supposed to start. Over in Kuwait, authorities just arrested 4 operatives linked to Iran out at sea. And in the UAE, the threat level has gotten so high that Israel has actually deployed its own Iron Dome anti-missile batteries just to help defend Emirati airspace. The anger on the ground is just profound. Ahead of U.S. brokered talks between Lebanon and Israel over in Washington, Hezbollah's chief Naim Qassem completely shot down the idea of direct negotiations. He called them a concession, bluntly stated that his group's weapons are not up for discussion, and promised to turn the battlefield into hell for Israel. It really shows how incredibly fragile the whole situation is. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contradictions we're seeing. Remember those 4 detainees in Kuwait I just mentioned? Well, we are looking at 2 entirely different realities playing out in the exact same waters. Kuwait's defense ministry says these men confessed to being Iranian Revolutionary Guard infiltrators plotting hostile acts on Bubiyan Island. But then, Iran's foreign ministry firmly condemns the arrests, claiming these guys were just routine maritime workers whose GPS happened to malfunction. Talk about a massive disconnect. Let's ripple outward again to part 3, the global chessboard. International powers taking sides and seeking peace. The international map is, well, it's a giant puzzle right now. China is stepping up as a mediator, even though they're still the primary buyer of sanctioned Iranian oil. In fact, President Trump will be discussing this directly with Xi Jinping in Beijing. Then you've got the Western response. Australia is officially joining a strictly defensive naval mission, alongside France and the UK, just to secure commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. And then there's Pakistan. Pakistan is trying really hard to position itself as a diplomatic bridge between Tehran and Washington. However, U.S. officials are reporting that Pakistan quietly allowed Iranian military aircraft to park right on its airfields to hide them from American airstrikes. So, this begs a massive question that U.S. lawmakers are asking right now.
Can a country legitimately play the role of peace broker while simultaneously harboring the combat jets of one of the warring sides? It's a tricky spot for sure. Now, let's move to our fourth circle and see how this builds into direct consequences for everyday consumers. Section 4, the economic fallout, how the conflict reaches your wallet. Take a look at this number, 3.8%. That is the U.S. inflation rate for April, and it's the highest we've seen since May 2023. So what's driving it? Energy costs. The Labor Department pointed out that this war has pushed up energy prices so much, it accounts for a whopping 40% of that total increase in the Consumer Price Index. I mean, gasoline alone jumped over 28% from just a year earlier. So the crucial point is this staggering 90% drop in commercial shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. It's essentially a maritime ghost town. The U.S. is actively blocking Iranian vessels, and in return, Iran is threatening to attack literally any ship that passes through without their permission. These dueling blockades have, quite effectively, choked off one of the entire world's most vital energy arteries. And that chokehold, it's creating these massive, totally unexpected ripple effects across the globe. Over in Asia, energy-hungry nations are seeing fuel costs absolutely soar. It's got consumers so panicked that the Middle East war is inadvertently supercharging the solar power industry. For example, the Philippines, which relies heavily on Middle Eastern oil, just saw a massive 70% jump in weekly rooftop solar inquiries. And the kicker? China is profiting big time from this emergency pivot, with their clean tech exports hitting an all-time record high. All right, let's bring this explainer back home. Section 5, the domestic divide, the political and financial toll at home. Right now, there's a fierce political battle erupting in Washington over one simple question. Who actually authorizes the war? See, under the War Powers Resolution, Congress says a president only has 60 days to terminate the use of force unless Congress approves it. And that deadline, it officially passed on May 1st. But Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is arguing that the clock actually stopped during the ceasefire. He claims the president has full, unquestioned authority under Article 2 of the Constitution to kick off the fighting again without needing a green light from Congress. And the tension at home is just getting amplified by how the war itself is being covered. President Trump has leveled some highly charged accusations against the media. Posting on Truth Social, he stated that reporting the Iranian enemy is doing well militarily against the U.S. is virtual treason. He's insisting the media is giving the enemy false hope, firmly maintaining his position that Iran's military has already been soundly beaten by American forces. Meanwhile, the actual financial toll of this whole operation just keeps climbing. Jules Hurst, the acting Pentagon comptroller, recently testified before Congress that the price tag for the Iran war has officially hit $29 billion. That's a huge, incredibly swift jump from the $25 billion estimate that Secretary Hegseth gave just last month. And honestly, there are whispers from some folks inside the Pentagon suggesting the true internal assessment might be sitting closer to $50 billion. So that leaves us right here. We've traced the epicenter of the broken diplomacy, the localized warfare sparking across the Middle East, the delicate dance of global superpowers, the 90% drop in shipping that's jacking up your gas prices, and the intense political infighting over a war bill that's at least $29 billion. So I want to leave you with this final thought. When you weigh all these sprawling, multi-layered consequences echoing around the world, what is the ultimate true cost of preventing a nuclear Iran? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep exploring.